At about 1:30, container ship struck the Francis Scott Key Bridge, which I've been over many, many times commuting from the state of Delaware, either on a train or by car.
This is my video update on this Wednesday midday, March the 27th. Let's talk about some news. And let's start things off with Netanyahu. Netanyahu is very, very angry with Joe Biden, with the Biden White House, because the Biden White House decided to not veto the latest UN Security Council resolution. And that UN Security Council resolution, though from what I understand, is not binding, but it does call for an immediate ceasefire. The fact that the United States decided to abstain means that the UN Security Council resolution has passed. The Russian delegation actually wanted the wording to say permanent ceasefire, but they realized that the US was not going to go for this. And so they settled on immediate ceasefire, but the resolution has passed and it calls for an immediate ceasefire, which is very strong wording. And it also calls for the immediate release of all hostages. And Netanyahu is very upset with the fact that the U.S. did not veto this resolution. He's very upset with the Biden White House. He is so upset with the Biden White House that he actually called off a trip that an Israeli delegation was going to take to the United States in order to discuss the next moves, the next steps in Rafah. Netanyahu wants to go into Rafah really, really hard and destroy everything and everyone. And the United States, the Biden White House, is very nervous about Netanyahu's plans for Rafah. And last month, Biden called up Netanyahu, and that was the last time they had spoken. It was last month. So they haven't spoken in a month, but last month Biden called Netanyahu and he told Netanyahu to send a delegation to the U.S. so they could discuss Rafah, and so the United States could try to convince Netanyahu to not demolish all of Rafah. But Netanyahu has now canceled that trip. And the way I see things is Netanyahu has got a decision to make. There's two ways that this could go. The first way is that Netanyahu decides to agree to this UN Security Council resolution, and we get an immediate ceasefire. That's the first way that this thing could go. Or the second option that Netanyahu has is that he can ignore this resolution and he can move forward with his plans for Rafah. And then the UN would, I believe the UN would then vote on another resolution. They would put another Security Council resolution in place. This one would be binding. This one would also, this resolution would also have the United States abstaining, so it would pass. And then this binding resolution would go to the General Assembly. The General Assembly would pass this binding resolution, which would once again call for an immediate ceasefire. And this would give the United Nations the power to actually enforce this ceasefire. And they could enforce the ceasefire in many ways. One way that they could enforce the ceasefire would be with sanctions, for example. But it would be a binding ceasefire. And we talked about this on the Duran a couple of months ago, that it would be a slow process, but eventually the UN would get there. Eventually, they would get to a point where the United States would be forced to abstain, and they would get to a point where either Netanyahu decides to agree to the terms of the resolution, or or the UN gets to a point where some sort of binding resolution gets voted on, and then the UN enforces the resolution. So this is a catastrophe for Biden's foreign policy, because it was Biden that during the beginning of the war, and he handed Netanyahu a blank check to do whatever he wants. And the Biden White House thought that this conflict was going to resolve in a matter of weeks or months, and they were completely wrong about how everything was going to turn out with this conflict. But he handed Netanyahu a blank check to do whatever he wants in this war, and Netanyahu took him up on his blank check offer, and Netanyahu did whatever he wanted in this war. And now the Biden White House, they are finding themselves in the position where they are trying to take back this carte blanche. And Netanyahu is saying, no. He's saying, you guys gave me a blank check, and now you want that blank check back? That's not how this works. And the Biden White House is saying, look, we have to take back that carte blanche. Even Trump sees where this is going, and he gave an interview the other day, and Trump said that Netanyahu has to wind this war down. Even Trump, who is a very strong supporter of Israel, he used to have an excellent relationship with Netanyahu, not so much anymore. But even Trump is saying that this war cannot go on any longer, that Israel and Netanyahu, they have to wind this war down. I believe those are the exact words that Trump used. They have to wind this war down because it's not going well. And the fact that Trump is now coming out and saying that Israel, Netanyahu, has to wind this war down, I believe puts even more pressure on the Biden White House to try and find a way to get Netanyahu to agree to the UN resolution, because it's the Democrats that have the voting base that is turning on Biden because of his stance and his policy with the war in Gaza. So even Trump is seeing where this is going. So let's now talk about, and we talked about this on the Duran. We said this is where things are going to move. They're going to move in this direction, and sure enough, it took a while, took many months, but sure enough, we are at that point where Netanyahu and the United States, they have decisions to make. So let's now talk about the Ukraine foreign minister, Kalua Kuleba, and his interview with Politico. And Kuleba, he told Politico, give us the damn Patriots. Actually, that's the title of this Politico article, this interview. Give us the damn Patriots. Ukraine needs air defenses now, minister says. So in this interview with the foreign minister of Ukraine, Kuleba, he says that without the 61 billion, then Ukraine's military is going to continue to collapse. He says that Ukraine needs the 61 billion. They need Patriot air defense systems right away, because it's the Patriot systems that can shoot down the Russian jets that are launching these glide bombs, which Ukraine has no answer for. So the only way they can stop the glide bombs, according to Kuleba, is if they shoot down the actual fighter jets. And he is telling Politico and telling the United States, give us the 61 billion, give us the money so we can get the weapons, and we want the Patriots now. Give us the damn Patriots. He also is telling Germany in this video, in this interview, to hand over the Taurus missiles as well, so Ukraine can launch long-range missiles into Crimea and into Russia. So, Ukraine was also given a blank check by the Biden White House. As long as it takes, that is the promise that the Biden White House made to Ukraine. We will give you unlimited money and weapons. And Ukraine believed that. And they took the collective West and the Biden White House up on their offer. And so they took the money and they took the weapons. They didn't husband any of their resources. And they kept on launching these reckless offensives because they thought that the money and the weapons are unlimited money, unlimited weapons. And now they are finding out that life doesn't work like that. Money is limited and weapons are absolutely limited because Kuleba is demanding Patriot air defense systems. But there are no more Patriot systems to give to Ukraine. The collective West is running out of Patriot systems. They're running out of weapons. They're running out of missiles. But in Kuleba's mind, missiles are infinite. Patriots are infinite. Money is infinite. Just print it. We want some money, print it. We want some Patriot air defense systems, print it. We want some Taurus missiles, print it. Print it and send it over tomorrow. So Kuleba is very upset. You want to know who's not upset? Who he's not upset with? I'll tell you who Kuleba is not upset with. Little Napoleon, Jupiter, Macron. Kuleba is very fond of Macron because over the past couple of weeks, Macron has been talking about sending EU French troops into Ukraine to fight the Russian military, and Kuleba likes this idea. He likes this idea a lot. And he likes Macron a lot. He really likes Macron. That's the one world leader that Kuleba is not angry with. The United States is angry with Macron, and Bloomberg is reporting that the U.S. is telling Macron to shut his mouth with all of this French troops in Ukraine stuff. According to Bloomberg, the United States is telling Macron that the U.S. and NATO does not need a direct conflict with Russia. So shut up, Macron, with your French troops in Ukraine. Bloomberg has an article with the title, Macron wants to run everyone's foreign policy. Not everyone agrees. And the United States is upset with Macron. Germany is telling Macron to shut his mouth. Kuleba likes Macron because Kuleba is telling Politico that sooner or later, the EU citizens, EU leaders have to accept the fact that they are going to have boots on the ground in Ukraine fighting the Russians. That is what Kuleba told Politico. EU citizens need to get used to the idea that their militaries, their sons and their daughters will be in Ukraine fighting the Russian military. And Kuleba is telling Politico that the EU, the people of Europe, the leadership of Europe should just accept this fact. That's what Kuleba is telling Politico. So the Zelensky regime, they fired another intel official, Danilov. Crazy guy, Danilov. He said a lot of crazy stuff. He was the head of the National Security and Defense Council. He was an intel guy. It was Danilov and Budanov. Those were the well-known intel guys in the Zelensky regime. You have another guy who runs the SBU, but he was more below the radar. Budanov and Danilov, they were the guys that were giving the interviews to the media. They were the guys that were talking all kinds of smack and talking up how Ukraine is going to win the conflict and how they have all of these operations directed at Russia and taking back Crimea. Danilov, a couple of weeks ago, actually insulted the Chinese as well, because a Chinese official, his last name sounds like a curse word in Russian, and Danilov was making fun of this Chinese official. Not a very smart move, but Danilov was not a very smart guy. Anyway, he's been fired by the Zelensky regime. And I imagine that he's now going to be ambassador to the UK. I mean, I don't know. Isn't that how this goes? Every top level Zelensky official, when they get sacked, they end up becoming ambassador to the UK. So you have Reznikov, ambassador to the UK. You have Zaluzhny, who was canned a couple of weeks ago. He's now ambassador to the UK. So I imagine Danilov now is going to get sent to the UK to become ambassador. Three Ukraine ambassadors in the UK. That's my guess. But I don't know. Are these guys really getting fired, or are they just jumping ship? I wouldn't be surprised if guys like Danilov, they go to Zelensky and they say, just fire me. I need to get out of this sinking ship that is called Ukraine. And I wonder if Zelensky's like, okay, you're fired now. Take your bags of money and all of your homes and go to London. I don't know. Anyway, he's been fired. He has been fired. Danilov. The Russian FSB, since we were talking about Budanov, since we were mentioning Budanov, the FSB is hinting at the fact that Budanov could be in very, very big trouble. And it looks like the FSB is looking at Budanov as one of the people involved in the terrorist attack in Moscow. The head of the FSB director, was asked by the media, why is Budanov still alive? And the FSB director said, everything is ahead. That was his statement to the media. Everything is ahead. Yeah, they're talking about targeting Budanov now. They haven't come out with a statement saying Budanov was behind this, or Budanov was one of the guys that was behind this terrorist operation, that was behind ISIS-K, ISIS-K, which is the narrative from the collective West. It was all ISIS and no Ukraine, but Russian officials, they're saying otherwise. They're saying, what did Putin say? Radical Islamists or radical jihadists? I forgot the exact words that Putin used yesterday in his statement, but they said that, but they're also saying that in Ukraine, there were people waiting for these 4 terrorists, and they want to find the people or the entities that were on the other side of the border waiting and possibly supporting these 4 terrorists. And it does look like that one of the people or the entities involved is the SBU, and we have a warrant from a Moscow court for the head of the SBU, and it looks like the other person or the other entity will be Budanov, but let's wait and see. The FSB director is hinting at Budanov, and the Russian Foreign Ministry, they put out a statement, Maria Zakharova, saying that Washington is trying to put Ukraine out of harm's way. They're trying to protect Ukraine. That is why they keep on saying it was ISIS-K, it was IS-K, this offshoot of ISIS in Afghanistan that is now operating in Afghanistan. They're the ones that committed this act of terror, and it was only them, nobody else, no one else. And this was definitely not Ukraine. They keep on saying that. There is no Ukrainian involvement in this attack whatsoever. And the Russian Foreign Ministry, they came out with a statement yesterday saying that the collective West in the United States, Washington, is trying to protect Ukraine, to put Ukraine out of harm's way. Listen to the wording, to put Ukraine out of harm's way, which means that Ukraine possibly is going to be harmed if you read the foreign ministry statement carefully. Washington is trying to put Ukraine out of harm's way. Oh boy. So that is an update on what is going on with the fast-moving investigation into the Moscow terrorist attack. So let's talk about some other news stories, and then we'll get to a clown world, a couple of clown worlds. Let's see. Robert Kennedy Jr. He announced his vice president. Nicole Shanahan is going to be Kennedy's running mate. I don't know much about Nicole Shanahan, so I'm not gonna say anything about Nicole Shanahan. From what I understand, she's been a big donor. She's been a major donor for the Kennedy campaign as well as for the Democrats, and she was married to Google founder Sergey Brin. So that's what I know about Nicole Shanahan. A lot of people are passing judgment on her. Some people are saying she's awesome. Some people are saying she's not so awesome. I don't know. We'll see. We will see if this was the right choice for Kennedy to make. Let's now get into some clown worlds. And the first clown world is a good one. It is an article from Bloomberg with the title, "Some in Putin's Own Circle See No Ukraine Link to Moscow Attack." So according to this article from Bloomberg, and I quote, "There's no evidence of involvement by Ukraine, according to 4 people with close ties to the Kremlin." Bloomberg claims that Putin was present at discussions where officials agreed that there is no link to Kiev, but remains determined to use the tragedy to try to rally Russians behind the war in Ukraine. Bloomberg cited one person with knowledge of the situation, asking not to be identified as their source. Of course not. Of course not. Maria Zakharova, she responded to this article from Bloomberg, writing on Telegram, and I quote, "A masterpiece of news, just the mother of all fakes." So Bloomberg has some inside information. They have some people on the inside who want to remain anonymous. They want to remain anonymous. They don't want to reveal who they are, but they are people inside Putin's circle. They're in the inner circle of Russian President Vladimir Putin. And they told Bloomberg, they called up Bloomberg, they Zoom called Bloomberg, and they told Bloomberg, "You know what? I've got some info for you, Bloomberg. I've got some really good info. Ukraine was not behind the terror attacks. Let's just say that straight away. Ukraine had nothing to do with the terror attacks. Zero evidence of Ukraine. And Putin, he is trying to use this tragedy to rally Russians behind the war in Ukraine, because Russian support for Putin and Russian support for his administration is at an all-time low, Bloomberg. It's at an all-time low. It's only at 87%. It's at an all-time low, and Putin needs to find ways to rally Russian support behind his administration and his policies. So that is what Bloomberg is reporting. And I think this is very accurate reporting from Bloomberg. I think it's very accurate reporting. I think that Maria Zakharova is completely wrong when she calls this the mother of all fakes. Maria Zakharova, you are completely wrong, because I know I've got some inside information, and I know who are the 4 individuals. I know who are the 4 individuals with close ties to the Kremlin that leaked this information to Bloomberg. I know who they are. Yeah, I know. And I'm going to tell you exactly who they are right now in this video. You're hearing it first right now on this channel. The four individuals that contacted Bloomberg and told Bloomberg that Ukraine has absolutely zero, nothing, nada to do with the terrorist attack, and told Bloomberg that Putin is using this tragedy in order to rally support for his all-time low 87% ratings, approval ratings. The four individuals are, and not in any specific order, the four individuals are Yolanda Navalny, Kasparov, the Yukos guy, I always forget his name, Khodorovsky or Khodakovsky, the Yukos guy, and the fourth individual that leaked this information to Bloomberg is the ghost of Kiev. Yep. Those are the four people who are in Putin's inner circle, and they have knowledge of what's going on in the Kremlin, and they're the ones that leaked this information to Bloomberg. You heard it here first. You heard it here first. So give a like to this video and subscribe to this channel. Let's get to 200,000 subscribers on YouTube. Where else are you going to get this type of information? Where else? Nowhere else. Nowhere else. And Trudeau, another clown world. Trudeau, he is pledging, according to National Post, pledging $8.4 million to study democratic decline. The initiative will research how climate change interacts with democratic decline and help protect the human rights of environmental defenders. Yeah, 8.4 million to study democratic decline. He can study democratic decline. Trudeau can study democratic decline if he just looks in the mirror. Just look in the mirror, Trudeau, and you'll understand democratic decline. Oh, man. Trudeau. 8.4 million. What a grift. What a grift, man. Washing that money. The washing machine of $8.4 million. Watch that $8.4 million in the washing machine to study democratic decline as it's connected to the environment. You got to hand it to Trudeau. Got to hand it to him. He comes up with some creative stuff, huh? He really comes up with some creative initiatives. Oh boy. And let's do one final clown world and we will wrap this video up. Goodbye, Mr. Bird. Let's talk about a Telegraph article with the title, "Even without the USA, NATO would still win in a fight." The numbers don't lie, but would NATO have the endurance to win in the long run? And according to the Telegraph, the answer is yes. NATO would win if they had to fight Russia, even without the United States. This is according to the Telegraph. Because according to the Telegraph, not only does NATO have an advantage in numbers, it has an advantage in technology, in weapons, in combined arms warfare. NATO is top when it comes to combined arms warfare. NATO is top when it comes to intel. NATO is top when it comes to technology. And the reasoning that the Telegraph gives for why Russia would get crushed by NATO, even without the United States, the reason is that that, well, Russia is getting beaten by Ukraine. And since Russia has been beaten by Ukraine, according to the Telegraph, because it suffered so many losses to Ukraine, to the Ukraine military, well, if it's losing to Ukraine, and if it suffers so many defeats to Ukraine, well, then obviously NATO would win. that is what the Telegraph is writing. The Ghost of Kiev defeated Russia, so NATO should be able to defeat Russia as well. The Zaporozhye Avenger defeated the Russian military, so NATO should be able to defeat Russia as well. NATO without the United States, keep in mind, all of this is without the United States. They really do believe in their own propaganda, don't they? I mean, they really, really believe in their own propaganda. They have no understanding of this war, of this conflict. They have no understanding of Russia, no understanding of the Russian military, of Putin, of the Russian government. They have zero understanding, especially the UK media, zero understanding of this conflict. And they actually believe in their own propaganda. This article talks about how the Russian military has suffered so many setbacks in Ukraine, tens of thousands of tanks destroyed, tens of thousands of airplanes destroyed, tens of thousands of ships destroyed. I'm exaggerating a bit, but that's basically what the article is saying. And so, of course, a NATO, even without the United States, would roll over the Russian military. There's a word for this article from the Telegraph. There's one word that describes this article from the Telegraph. Bollocks. Bollocks. That is what this article from the Telegraph is. Bollocks. If NATO, even without the United States, would be able to roll over the Russian military, then I ask the Telegraph just one simple question. One simple question. Then just do it. You know, I mean, what's the problem? Just do it and be done with it. Roll over the Russian military. You don't need the United States. Gather up 10 or 15 NATO countries, go into Ukraine, roll up the Russian military, and be done with it. If that is indeed the case. But we know it's not. We know it's not. Because even the United States, even Germany, when Macron was talking about troops in Ukraine, even the United States, even Germany, they told Macron, zip it. Zip it, Macron, because if we were to send troops into Ukraine and fight the Russians would annihilate us. And they understand it and they know it. And that is why they told Macron to shut up. Anyway, that's the video, everybody. Those are the clown worlds. I think we had 3 clown worlds today, huh? TheDuran.locals.com. We are on Rumble, ODYSEE, BitChute, Telegram, Rockfin, and Twitter X. And go to the Duran shop. Today I'm wearing a Bulgaria Duran t-shirt. And I'm also wearing a Duran reverse gear hoodie, reversegear.shop, where you'll get premium reverse gear merchandise. No reverse gear? Well, we have a shop now called Reverse Gear. You can buy reverse gear merch. Take care.